Good afternoon, I'm Karen Holmes Ward. The Supreme Court has rejected the use of affirmative action policies in admissions at Harvard and the University of North Carolina. The decision overturns decades of legal precedent. ABC's M. Nguyen explains the ruling and the dissent.
In a major 6-3 Supreme Court ruling, the justices split along conservative and liberal lines, with the conservative majority striking down the use of affirmative action in higher education, effectively upending the use of race as a factor in college admissions in order to achieve diversity in college campuses. The court had heard two cases challenging the admissions policies of Harvard and the University of North Carolina. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson recused herself from the Harvard case, but offered her dissent in the UNC case, saying the devastating impact of this decision cannot be overstated. Racial inequality will persist so long as it is ignored. In October, after nearly 5 hours of oral arguments, Justice Clarence Thomas expressed his skepticism about affirmative action.
I've heard the word diversity quite a few times, and I don't have a clue what it means. It seems to mean everything for everyone.
Two cases were before the court, both brought by a conservative advocacy group asking judges to reverse 4 decades of precedent. In the first one, Edward Bloom argued Harvard discriminates against Asian American applicants by using subjective standards to score their personalities. In the second, he alleged the University of North Carolina discriminates against white and Asian American students by giving preference to Black, Hispanic, and Native American applicants. Both institutions deny the allegations. This ruling forces higher education to look for new ways to achieve diverse student bodies. And while the court did find that race could be used in those college admissions essays, those essays can't be used to circumvent what the court just ruled. M. Nguyen, ABC News, the Supreme Court.
So what does the decision mean for students and the admissions process? Joining us now is Ken Elmore. He's president of Dean College, and Jonathan Feingold, associate professor at the Boston University School of Law. Ken, how does this change the admissions process for students that are getting ready to apply for college?
Well, I think on a real basic level, it changes it because, the way it'll change is that colleges and universities can no longer take into consideration as a primary factor race. And I think the guidance, if you will, from the court sort of says there's a prompt you can ask them about how race has affected their lives in some way. But I think that students should think that indifference is how we're going to treat race in this conversation.
John, 9 states already had bans on affirmative action in place, including in California, and you were previously at UCLA. What effect did that have on the student body makeup?
Well, one thing that we see in states that have race-conscious admissions policies and then just pull them back without making any other alterations to their admissions process is there tend to be a precipitous drop-off in the enrollment of historically underrepresented students. Now, the reason for that, the reason why race-conscious admissions remain necessary today is that if you don't account for race, you can't counteract all the racial advantages that are already embedded in the admissions process. And so the question today for all those universities that have been considering race is how do you avoid that same result?
So this brings up a point. So what can schools do to counteract the appeal of affirmative action, and how can they create a diverse student body without now breaking the law?
So one thing, this is somewhat abstract, is to really interrogate what are the criteria that you rely on? How do you conceive of merit at your institution? And if there are policies that you're relying on that are overwhelmingly giving an unearned advantage to students with the most inherited racial privilege, then get rid of them. And the most obvious example, though certainly just one, are legacy preferences at Harvard, where one thing that we learned from this case is that in a recent 5-year span, Harvard admitted over 1,600 white legacy students.
Yes, what are legacy?
So students with a familial connection to university or who play a sport, or like Harvard, that's like polo or croquet. And what we saw is that roughly 1,600 white students from a recent 5-year period would not have gotten into Harvard but for that legacy bump. Now, that's nothing other than a racial preference for white students in practice, if not form.
So you're saying if you get rid of affirmative action, get rid of the legacy also. Ken, Dean College's student body has many first-generation students and students of color. Do you anticipate this ruling is going to change anything that you do at your college?
Well, I think that what's going to change at our college is that we've got to make sure that we maintain what, about a third of our students being students of color, about 14% of our students are black students. And we've got to maintain that at least. And I hope that doesn't get me in trouble by saying that. But what we're going to do differently is we step up the conversations, we step up the discussion, we step up being able to say to the students who are out there in the world, if diversity means something to you, you should come to our space because we will talk about it, we will engage with it, and we will make sure that the truths of your experience are out there and are lifted up.
You know, it's interesting. There's evidence that shows that students learn better in a diverse environment.
Sure.
So, you know, how is this going to impact that piece of the educational experience?
Well, you know, I think you've got to ask this question too. Which students learn better in a diverse environment? You know, this whole conversation has been one that's been incredibly devoid of race and conversation about race. There's the argument that a white student does do better because of their racial attitudes and how they learn. And there's also the argument, too, that the student of color says, I don't want to be that learning space for you. But we know, as people who are out in the world, who work in the world, that the more people you engage with over time in your experience, you're going to be better at engaging them and dealing with them. And so, you know, I hope businesses, I hope that we can see more communities say, yeah, we want people to be in spaces and also reckon with this whole notion of race.
Yes. John, many people have focused on undergraduate admissions policies, but this ruling also applies to graduate and professional schools. What are some of the impacts on law schools like yours, medical schools, and the professions and people entering the workforce?
Well, so I think one thing that, as really grotesque some of the reasoning was in the opinion and really how radical it was in flipping precedent like the Equal Protection Clause in Title VI on its head, the legal holding is actually quite narrow. So like what Ken mentioned is that what universities lose, what law schools lose, what med schools lose is one tool, the formal consideration of the individual racial identity of an applicant. They lose that tool from their toolbox, but they can continue to engage in a whole number of approaches to try to ensure that they continue to have a racially robust student body.
And just one more point. The general public seems to think that higher education should be more affordable, accessible, and responsive to all students across the country. And this court ruling is in opposition to what many across America feel, isn't it?
That's a good point. And, you know, it also goes to the value that higher education really does have as a way to make for the racially integrated and multiracial society that we want.
All right. Ken Elmore, president of Dean College, and Jonathan Feingold, associate professor at Boston University School of Law. Thank you both for joining us.